to At Ease with Cooking. I'm Bonnie Kirschke, your host. For many families, steamed puddings are a tradition during the holidays. However, many people are unfamiliar with these delicious festive holiday desserts. So if you've never prepared or eaten one before, we hope you will enjoy our program this evening titled Holiday Steamed Puddings. And what better steamed pudding to begin with than English plum pudding with lemon sauce? And it's going to be prepared by Gladys Meinz. Hi, Gladys.
Hi, Bonnie.
Nice to have you back with us
Thank
again.
you.
This is something I have been looking forward to for a long time because I have never made an English steamed pudding. So I'm really anxious to see how you're
A
going
lot
to
of
prepare
Americans haven't made one, so
it. And
we'll
you've
show 'em
got
how it's
so
done.
many wonderful ingredients here. How do you start?
Okay, well, I've beat up the 3 eggs. Set it with 3 eggs, 3 good-sized eggs, and I've beat those already. So then you can add the molasses, and we have 1/4 cup of molasses.
Now, you've used the dark molasses?
Yes.
Would it matter?
Nah, I just think the darker the plum pudding looks, the better it
The
looks.
better,
you
and
know.
that would certainly make it
So,
nice and dark. Here,
I'm going to
take
put
that
the
forward.
empty ones under here. Okay, and then we've got the juice of 1 orange, the juice of 1 lemon, the rind of 1 orange,
Okay.
the rind of 1 lemon.
Oh, this is going to be nice and flavorful.
Okay, now I'm going to take the spatula and put it over here. Then we're going to start adding I'm going to put the spices in with the flour. So we have 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, 2 teaspoons of allspice, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 1 teaspoon of baking soda.
Oh,
And I'll give you
great.
all those. Now we mix all these spices up together.
It really doesn't seem as if it's very complicated. You have
It's
quite a
not.
few ingredients, but
not. You're gonna-
not complicated.
Okay, I've just put in the currants.
All right.
And that's 1 packet of currants.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, there is currants. So I think there's 1 packet of 10 ounce. 10 ounce. Okay.
ounces.
We have 2 cups of raisins, and I've ground the raisins up.
All right.
And I'm going to try and get a little flour on some of these so that they don't
Separate a
all
little
sink
bit,
to the
right,
bottom. And
mhm. Yes, that is something that's good to know about.
I'm going to put all this now in with the eggs.
All right, and all of those other liquids.
I'll put it all in. Oh, excuse me.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to
Okay.
take that for you.
Okay, now we've got a packet of fruit. It's the dried fruit,
Mm-hmm.
and I've ground that up also.
Now, did you use a meat grinder for
I
this,
use the
or-
Cuisinart.
All right, so the food processor would
Yeah,
work.
the food
Okay.
processor. I have 1 cup of brown sugar.
And it isn't necessary to stir this as you go along?
No. I have a cup of nuts, walnuts that have been chopped very, very fine. I have 1 cup of plum jelly.
Yeah, plum. Great.
Then I have 2 cups of suet.
All right, now, where do you get this?
You
and
can
what
get
do you
this
do
in the
with it?
meat department, any grocery store in the meat department, and it's very, very cheap, suet is. This big package, it was a big package, enough for 10 plum puddings, and I think it cost about 64 cents.
All right, now, when you got it home, what did you do with it then to get it into this nice texture?
I put it through the food processor.
Food processor
Grind
again.
it all up with the
right.
nuts, and I put everything through. You can start stirring
All
that now,
right.
Bonnie, before we add anything else.
This is a wonderful large bowl that you have. I can tell that you've been making plum pudding for a lot of years in this bowl.
It's not as hard to stir as the fruitcake, though.
Yes,
There's not as much in it as the fruitcake.
those made quite large fruit cakes. I
Okay,
recall
let's put
we did that last year.
Yeah, we're going to put in 1/4 of a cup of brandy. This gives it a little zing.
Okay. A little cover over there on our Dutch ovens, singing a tune for us. There, it's starting to get nicely blended.
Yeah,
You have to have a little bit of muscles to do this.
Here. Yeah, it's all got to be mixed good.
How am I doing
So-
here?
Oh yeah, that's good. I can stir some if you get tired. So when you get this mixed up pretty good, we're going to put in 2 cups. It's a package of breadcrumbs.
Oh, all right. Yeah,
It's
still
not
got
2 cups,
some.
it's 1.5 cups of breadcrumbs.
Still got a.
And they're the soft breadcrumbs.
Still have some flour here down on the bottom, so I want
Yeah.
to be sure I get that all thoroughly blended
You
in.
can't do this with a mixer, even
No,
a heavy.
it's
It's
too.
too heavy for
it's too
even a
thick.
heavy-duty mixer. But you're doing good that way. Now let's sprinkle in a few breadcrumbs, and I'll just put a little bit at a time, and that way it's not too hard for you to. But your hand gets to aching.
Yeah,
doesn't it?
the shoulder is what starts aching a little bit. But if you're home and you can take a little bit of a rest.
While you do that, Bonnie, I'm going to get the bowls.
Oh, great!
Ready.
And why don't you tell us what you do with that?
I will. I'm taking a little shortening. This happens to be Crisco, but any kind of shortening is okay. And you grease your basin really good, your bowl. In England, we call them basins. In America, they call them bowls. Same difference. That's how it looks.
And what size bowls are you using?
That is a 10 cup.
10 cup.
10 cup, and this I think is a 4 cup. I'm not. I had it written down on the other recipe, but I don't know. It's on the recipe anyway. Is that wet enough?
Well, I'm going to try and add some more breadcrumbs now.
Okay.
And we'll see. It's a rather thick batter. I know you have your son sometimes help you make these, don't you?
Yeah, that's good. Michael's a good stirrer. But that's good. You're doing a good job. Don't worry about it.
There, I think we've got that batch pretty well mixed in. Now, how long do you steam these, Gladys?
Well, for this one, check it in about 3.5 to 4 hours. 4 hours, you know it's going to be done, but check it in 3.5. And stick a pick in the middle, and if it comes out clean, it's done.
Okay.
This little one, 2 hours, 2.5. Check it in 2 hours.
All right, and you do that in a Dutch oven.
And I'll show you in a little while what we're going
All
to do.
right.
But we're going to put it so the water comes up to about here on the basin. And never let the water come over the top so it gets in the pudding. But the water has to keep boiling all the time.
All right.
So I keep a kettle of boiling water on my back burner and add a little bit as it boils down. You know.
All right.
So, but I'll show you how we put that in a minute. Okay, let me give you a little more liquid because it needs a little more.
All right.
So we'll add a little more brandy. That's the only kind of liquid we have.
Great. Ooh, that smells good. Well, there are so many wonderful fruits in here.
Oh, see, that's much easier for you to stir
Yes,
now.
it is.
It's a little wetter.
I think I've just...
Yeah, that looks pretty good, Bonnie.
Well,
Let me have a one little stir before we, because I can tell then if I do it myself. See, this flour's still, breadcrumbs still here.
Yeah, there's still a few on the bottom. Now, when you serve this, do you usually take it right out of the pan and serve it to your guests, or can you put it in the refrigerator or freezer and save it so that you wouldn't have to do this?
I usually make this, the plum puddings I usually make in October.
In October, all right.
Because I make my fruitcakes in November, the first part of November. So I make my plum puddings usually in October, and then keep them in the basement. And you can put them, see, I have a refrigerator downstairs that I can put it in. Mm-hmm. But you can keep them in the refrigerator for 2 or 3 years, you know, they keep.
In the refrigerator or the freezer?
The refrigerator.
Oh. Do they freeze well? Or
oh, yeah, you can freeze them too, you know. But
then when you're ready to serve it, what would you do with it?
Then Christmas Day, when I'm ready to serve it, then Christmas morning I go down the basement and get one up, and then put it in a kettle of water and let it heat all the way through. Nowadays they've got microwaves, so you can put it in the microwave and zap it for 5 minutes. And you know, put it in and then heat it through and turn it, you know, a couple of times so it gets heated, you know.
Through that way, yes.
Now when you put this in the basin, now you do have to leave room at the top because it is going to raise a little because it's got baking soda in. So we fill the basin up about this far, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Like about yay. Then we're going to take a piece of tin foil and cover it. And then next we take a piece of flour sack dish towel.
Okay. They come in real handy,
so
don't they?
Use muslin if you want, that's plenty okay, but I use these. And you tie it corner to corner, like this, and like this. And you've got something to lift it with. Then in order to cook this, we're going to put it in. I use my Dutch oven at home.
All right.
And the water should come about to here on the basin. Never let the water come over the top of the basin. Okay. And keep it so it's simmering all the time. Don't let it go off the boil.
And then when you're finished, can you unmold it immediately, or do you have to wait a little while?
Well, you can take it out right away, but you can leave it also. You can stay that way till.
And here we have 2 plum puddings, one made with the larger bowl that you used, and one made with the smaller bowl. And then we have the lemon sauce, and that recipe includes 1 3/4 cups of powdered sugar, 2 tablespoons of butter, a tablespoon of cornstarch, the grated rind of 1 lemon, and a 1/4 cup of lemon juice. And you put that all in a pan, and you heat it up until it's bubbly on top of the stove. And then here you have this beautiful lemon sauce. Ooh, this is going to be just marvelous with this. You also have suggested a number of other types of sauces too. Why don't you just tell us what they would be?
Well, you can. Most cookbooks have the nutmeg sauce or the custard. Mm-hmm. You can use that. The egg custard you can put on it. You can even make that vanilla pudding that you cook, and you know, pour that over it too. Make it quite thin and pour that over it. That's very good on it. Mm-hmm. There's quite a number of different sauces in different cookbooks that you can use, and you can use any of them. Use your imagination.
Well, they certainly do look marvelous. Gladys, thank you so much for sharing
welcome.
your English plum pudding recipe
You're very
with
welcome.
us. And coming up next, we're going to have Elizabeth Frank prepare carrot pudding with hard sauce. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi.
Nice to have you back with us again.
Thank you.
I understand this carrot pudding is what your family used to use when you were young for their holiday dinner.
This was our plum pudding.
This
I never knew any other kind.
This was, okay, what are the ingredients for this?
Well, you can tell it's a real old recipe when I read the ingredients because when it says butter the size of an egg, I decided that probably 3 tablespoons was as close as I could make it because
Sure.
eggs are such, they weren't grated then, you know.
Yes,
So,
okay.
Yeah, that's right. So it calls for a cup of grated carrots and a cup of grated potatoes, a cup of raisins, a cup of sugar, a cup of flour. I love recipes that just call for even amounts.
Yes, that was
Yeah,
really
and then
interesting.
Yeah, and then of course your butter the size of an egg, and there's cloves, cinnamon, nutmeg, a teaspoon of soda, and a teaspoon of salt. And it's kind of like the old dump cake where you just put it all together. It's a very easy recipe and kind of foolproof. You know, you don't have to worry about anything.
Well, great. Now, is there any order then that we have to
not
use?
especially, but the only thing is that I tend to get the butter out at room temperature, and I had set it here just momentarily by the warmth on there to just soften it up a little bit. Otherwise, if you take these ingredients that get rather stiff when they're stirred together
Yes.
and put a chunk of cold butter in it, it's not going to blend in.
It's not going to incorporate
So that's
very
the
well.
only reason that I would do it this way. So as you can see, it's gotten,
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it's merely softened. And I think I've got it softened all over my finger too, if I'm not mistaken. May I do this? Okay. And so, as you can see, you can mash it down so that you can realize
Oh,
it isn't going to
surely.
be in a chunk. And if you put the sugar in first, it's kind of like the creaming of the butter and
Oh,
sugar.
sure.
And so that kind of helps to sustain it doesn't, by the time you mix it enough to get all those ingredients in, this is going to be stirred in, but you can see if you started off with a really hard chunk right out of the
Yes, it
refrigerator.
would be,
Yeah,
it'd be difficult. You'd have to
Right.
use a mixer then.
that's right. You can use a mixer for this because this dough doesn't really get that hard. You know, it isn't like a real stiff dough.
Now, you said that these were ground.
That's
now,
right.
if you don't have a food grinder at home, what would be an alternative method?
Well, you
Could
can use a food processor of any kind now because absolutely, and when this recipe was created, there weren't any food processors, so I used to use my mother's own grinder. But I noticed that in using a food processor to do them, you don't get as much juice with them.
All right.
So that these were ground in an old-time grinder, you know, the grinder, and you can see that there's very little juice on those. But when it comes to the potatoes, which have begun to darken a little bit because even though they're done at the last minute, you know, they're exposed to the air,
Right.
then they darken up a little bit. There is considerable amount of juice, and you have to have a little bit in so that if you're using a food processor for them, you'll just have to watch and the texture of it, and if it is just as hard as a board, you'll have to just put a couple tablespoons of water in.
Water in it. All right,
But
great.
you see, the food processor wasn't in existence at that time.
Yes, because really that is the only liquid that you have
That's
in this
right.
recipe.
And another thing that I've done, I do it to suit myself. I'm sure my mother did. I never did this. But instead of peeling your potatoes like you do or using a food peeler and getting them nice and clean, the ones that I buy usually look like they've been washed and everything. And so I just wash them very thoroughly or use a stiff brush. And I do the same thing with the potato. The only thing is be sure that you don't take a potato that has any little green on it, because
Yes.
that is poisonous. And so I just scrub the potato and take a little, the gadget and take out if there's any eyes, you know, so there's no
Yes.
dirt. And so you can put the skin on them, both of them, in. So that
Surely.
just saves one step.
Why, great. A
And then,
little more healthy too.
that's right. And that's it. See, this has no suet or anything in it. No saturated fats and so forth. The butter has a little bit, but with only 3 tablespoons for about 10 servings, you can see.
Yes,
Yeah.
then it isn't.
And then I'm going to put these
be too much.
raisins on top of the flour so that when you incorporate them, it helps to incorporate. Incidentally, when you are grinding the raisins, it helps if you put them either grind them together with the carrots so the juice kind of makes the raisins separate, or in this case, they were ground together with flour. And I have to give you a little hint. It is, you know, anybody viewing and wanting to start this for the first time might not have all the success with that, because we'll have to confess that in doing the recipe twice before this was prepared on the air, when you ground the raisins with the flour one time, it came out just perfect, and the next time they tended to stick a little bit. It depends on how long you grind and so forth. So,
Right.
yeah. so that you might run into the, so that's all there's to it, and then you just start putting in your seasonings one after the other. And these can be varied too, you know, I mean, if you like one particular spice stronger than the other, it's your pudding.
Yeah, right.
You can be as, there, so absolutely, how much easier would you want it?
Wow, boy, it couldn't be much more simple.
And then
could
this
it?
is steamed for 3 hours, and it can be made ahead, it can be frozen, it can be put in the refrigerator, and now with a microwave, what I do, if I want to serve somebody that comes in just kind of out of the blue, I just take off a piece off the pudding as it is, throw it in its little dish that is microwave proof, and then I serve it with either a hard sauce or there are any number of sauces, you know,
Right.
that you can use with it.
Yes, you have a recipe you're going
Yeah,
to
that's
share
right.
with us for a hard sauce, and then I believe you're also going to include a brown sugar sauce
That's right.
for us.
Well, this is what we had at home, and in the sauces that go on them, you can even use whiskey or rum or brandy, or you can use, if people have a reason, whatever their reason is for not wanting to include liquor, then you just use a rum or flavoring like that, or you can use vanilla.
Oh,
So-
surely.
Yeah, right. And so-
Yes, now you can see there is
Yeah,
quite a bit of
yeah.
moisture considering you didn't add any
That's
additional
right.
liquid. Right.
Now, if, for example, if you put them in the food processor and those potatoes didn't get that wet, I showed you, just a certain amount of juice on them, and it isn't this kind of a texture, you'd add 1 or 2 tablespoons of water.
water,
Yeah,
surely.
right. And it isn't going to kill it. It just makes the pudding more dense or something. I mean, this is a very versatile type of recipe.
Great.
I think it had to be the old-time cooks. They didn't have always cookbooks and ingredients, so that they did the best they could.
The best they could. And here
Yes.
we have a mold.
That's right, and it has been not only greased but floured, and that'll help in case you want to mold it. If you're using it at Christmas time, you kind of want to gussy it up a little bit as much as you can. But it can be, the reason that it has a sort of a funnel type arrangement, or you could say an angel food cake-like type of pan, is so that the steam can come up into here and cook it better. Otherwise, it would take considerably longer, or you'd run the chance of it not being done in the
Right,
center.
right. And this is a regular steamed pudding mold.
That's right. Yes. Actually, I had a kind of an old-timer thing, and you can use anything you want, but the center, it's really kind of important, otherwise the pudding tends not to get done the way it
It's
should.
thoroughly cooked here.
Yeah, okay, because there is soda in it, and it will raise, of course.
Great.
And so then you just simply steam that for, did I loosen something there?
No,
Okay.
that's fine.
And you simply steam it for 3 hours. If you have a mold this is a very special kind of a mold, and you see it has the design, so it's going to be very pretty for the Christmas time. But if you have just a plainish mold, well, you will have to take foil and put it over the entire thing, and be sure and put it down over the edges like this, and secure it with a piece of string or something, so that when the moisture comes up, when it starts to steam, it won't fall back into the pudding.
there, right.
Uh-huh.
And then that would just go into
That's
a Dutch
right.
oven with boiling water again.
That's right, and you just keep it at a low, kind of a simmering.
And that was, you said, 3 hours.
3 hours.
And then
For this size, that's
we
about.
have one of the beautiful carrot puddings here.
Do you want me to put this in here now, Bonnie, or is that enough
Oh,
to
that's
just?
okay. We're going to just
cover
show
seems to be a
how
little stubborn.
how pretty it looks. And maybe you could tell us what your hard sauce recipe ingredients
All right.
were.
The reason I did this, especially according to a very special recipe, is just to give you an idea of the amount that you get and the people viewing it. This particular hard sauce is exactly what the recipes are here. There's a cup of powdered sugar, and I used 4 tablespoons of butter. And being it's a holiday thing, you kind of go over the edge a little bit and use some, extra fats. But if people are especially watching cholesterol, which in my case I am, or that they're not supposed to have saturated fats, you just lessen the amount
Okay.
of this. And I used a teaspoon of rum flavoring here because, as I say, to give you the option as against the liquor, but there's nothing says you can't put the liquor in if you want. And this was just in the cream.
And the
4
cream,
tablespoons
yes.
of cream.
Okay.
Now, you want me to dip into this and show you the texture? Or don't you?
I think we're running a little bit short
Okay,
of time.
right.
We'll put a little bit on our
right.
slice of carrot pudding for the end of the show.
That's right. And all you have to do is put more powdered sugar and less cream, or, to get the texture the way you want. And if you want it real stiff, you can even put it in a pretty butter mold.
Oh.
It's just a matter of adding more powdered sugar.
Wonderful. Great,
Yeah.
great
Uh-huh.
idea.
So you're
Thanks so
welcome.
much, Biz. We
You're
really
welcome.
appreciate you sharing your family
Thank you. It's
recipe
fun.
with us. And coming up next, I'm going to be preparing a cranberry holiday steamed pudding, and that is going to have an orange butter sauce. This cranberry pudding is made in a rather small steamed pudding mold. It will serve 6 generously. Probably you could get 8 out of it. I'm going to have to go through these ingredients rather quickly because we are a little bit short of time. What we're going to have is 3 tablespoons of butter, a half a cup of sugar, 1 egg, and 1 cup of unsifted flour. And then we have a teaspoon and a half of baking powder, 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt, 1/4 of a cup of milk, and we have an egg, and we have 1 cup of cranberries and a half a cup of coarsely chopped pecans. Now what I usually do is I cream the butter and the sugar together, add the egg, then sift the dry ingredients together and add the dry ingredients alternately with the milk until you've thoroughly incorporated them. Then you want to fold in your cranberries and your nuts, and then you want to put it into your pudding mold that has been generously greased, and here I usually use Crisco, and then floured. Now if you don't have a pudding mold, you could use a bowl that would be somewhat similar to this size bowl, and you there again would grease it and generously flour it. You have mixed all of your ingredients together. You'd put it in either your mold or your bowl, and of course with your mold you've got your nice little cover. Clamp it down, put it in your boiling water, reduce it to simmering, and then let that simmer for about an hour and 15 minutes to an hour and a half. Now it's going to take a little bit longer in the bowl because you do not have that center tube, so you've got to be sure that you get that center of that pudding cooked. Best way to check it is to check it with a toothpick, or if you have a cake tester, that'll really work well. Now when it's finished, take it out of the water and allow it to cool for 25 minutes to a half an hour, and it will unmold very nicely onto your serving plate. If you want to serve it warm, you'd serve it at that time. If you're going to be serving it at another time, you can cool it down, wrap it in foil, store it in the freezer, and then at a later date when you're ready to use it, take it out, leave it in the foil, and heat it in the oven for about 20-25 minutes, half an hour at 325 degrees, and then it'll be just perfect for you. Now the orange butter sauce here has 1 cup of sugar, 1 tablespoon of flour, half a cup of butter, half a cup of whipping cream, and we have 1 tablespoon of undiluted thawed frozen orange juice concentrate, and 1 teaspoon of Grand Marnier. Now you're going to cook all of these items except the Grand Marnier on the stove until it's nice and bubbly. Remove it from the fire, and then you're going to whisk in that Grand Marnier. And if you don't like the Grand Marnier, just use an extra teaspoon of the orange juice concentrate. Now we have our orange butter sauce here and our slice of cranberry pudding, and just serve it over just like that. Now if you would like a copy of this evening's recipes, if you'll send us a self-addressed, stamped, business-size envelope, and please be sure you do include the title of this evening's shows, Holiday Steamed Puddings, we'll be happy to get these recipes to you. We're here with all of our delicious holiday steamed puddings. We have our English plum pudding with our lemon sauce. We have our carrot pudding with hard sauce. And we have our holiday cranberry pudding with our orange butter sauce. Gals, everything looks so delicious. Thanks so much for sharing your recipes. We really appreciate you coming on and sharing them with us. Thanks again.
Yeah.
And thank you too for watching. And we hope you'll tune us in again next time for At Ease with Cooking. Happy holidays!